Across the country, the federal government's plans to introduce new legislation with proposed changes to the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, or CERB, hit a big roadblock in the House of Commons today. Let's bring in the host of Power Play and Question Period, Evan Solomon, who's tracking it all here. So what happened?
Well, it was squabbling that frankly looks like an embarrassment. You could not make this up. Remember, as the Globe and Mail reported, this is the 39th day that Parliament has sat since last June. And this was a day where the Liberals said, look, we've got a couple pieces of legislation. We want to help people with disabilities. We want to put forward some legislation on the CERB and cracking down on it. And yet, in this COVID committee that the Liberals and the NDP have agreed to meet, this is not a regular sitting, Todd, you need unanimous consent from all the leaders in order to actually get table a piece of legislation related to COVID, and then you've got to debate it before it can pass. And guess what? Kindergarten class, they could not all agree. And then the Liberals said, well, what if we split it? What if we hive off the bill on disabilities and we debate that separately, and then we debate the CERB and the fraudulent tracking down on fraud in another bill? That didn't work. Then Andrew Scheer said, I've got an idea. Why don't we stop? We have a reset, and we bring back the House with a brand new sitting at 3 o'clock. Basically, in 20 minutes, that resets it, and then they could have another special sitting and start again. That didn't work. So guess what? Now they won't be able to debate any of this legislation, all very important, till next Wednesday.
So June the 17th. And what is it the Liberals, sort of in layman's terms, are trying to do here, Evan, when it comes to that program, the CERB?
They want to pass some legislation that will allow them to crack down on fraud, and they had proposed a draft bill on that yesterday, which said that if you have a reasonable chance of working, you have to get off the CERB and go find a job. Here's one of the reasons. It's a pretty interesting thing. Of all the programs that the Liberals have put out to help people in this crisis, Todd, the CERB, the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, which is originally for 4 months and $2,000 a month, that has been the life raft that everybody has jumped on. 8.4 million Canadians are saying, I'm riding out the crisis on the good ship CERB. The Liberals thought a lot more people would take up the 75% wage subsidy bill. But for all sorts of reasons that we don't 100% appreciate yet, the uptake on that has been much, much lower. So the Liberals are trying to urge people, okay, get off the good ship CERB, get onto the wage subsidy and get back to work. And we're going to try to punish fraudsters who have been maybe double dipping on both. Now, the NDP originally put up their hands and said, we will not support that. We think that you should not be punishing Canadians who are seeking help, even though the Liberals said, we're not trying to do that. We're trying to ramp out fraud. So everyone's got their own agenda. For example, the Bloc said, we'll agree to this if you agree to a fiscal update on the hundreds of billions of dollars spent. The Liberals say we can't do that because they're rolling figures on that. And we want other issues. So each of the parties have had a demand in a minority parliament, not unusual, but the Liberals are saying no. And now guess what happens? Without unanimous consent, which is required to get legislation in this COVID-19 special committee, because that's what it is right now, everyone's got to take their toys and go home and try all over again on Wednesday. The problem is, if you're one of those Canadians with disabilities that wanted help, you got nothing. And we don't have a fiscal update. We don't have debate on the spending. We don't have legislation on the CERB. So, all these legislation delayed is benefit denied.
And for people who are wondering what happens when the CERB runs out, Evan, which for some of them is going to be in less than a month, I mean, where we stand on the idea of extending it?
Well, the Liberals clearly are open to extending it in some form or another. And you had talked earlier to Michelle Boyer about the parliamentary budget officer saying, well, maybe we extend it till the end of the year and it costs us $64 billion. We've already spent about $43 billion. Clearly, there's a sense that support can't just be pulled, but there's lots of questions about who would fall through the cracks, how would you get it, will there be sick leave benefits? So one of the reasons we are looking forward to a real debate today is to try to get a more complete discussion on what form the CERB would take, for how long, what are the costs, who would be eligible. But again, because these guys are stuck, or these folks are stuck on procedural wrangling, they've all just got up. I was just watching it before I talked to you, and I just was shocked that they couldn't come to a fundamental agreement. And I think it's really something that the NDP are going to have to think about, why they supported the Liberals on the return of the special COVID committee, not the regular sittings of the House. They did it in exchange for more questions, and they did it in exchange for a promise on 10-day sick leave that the government has to negotiate with the provinces, and they're talking about it. But in a situation where they're trying to hold the Liberals to account and debate some education, some legislation like this, well, you kind of reap what you sow on that, because you can't do it in this current format.